Hello everyone, welcome back. Today I'll explain to everyone why the Nimzo-Indian is not that complicated and why I would recommend you to play this against 1d4. So, the Nimzo-Indian starts off as d4, knight f6, c4, e6. Take a look at this position and what do you think black has his edge on? Well, actually, black doesn't have an actual edge anywhere. It's just that black will get his central control. And here, white has two, or actually more than two, ways to respond. The first way, which is the most common way, is knight c3, which means that white allows black to play bishop b4 and get into the normal Nimzo-Indian defense. The whole point of the Nimzo-Indian defense is that black wants to trade off his dark squared bishop and get all of his pawns to dark squares and get an extremely solid position. In fact, the Nimzo-Indian is the most popular opening against 1d4 that black can play. And here, white has a lot of options. White can play Mainline, Rubinstein, e3. White can play knight f3. White can play g3. White can play a3. White can play queen c2. White can play f3. There are just tons of moves that white can just play. In my opinion, the best move that white should play is queen c2. And the whole point of queen c2 is it's known as the classical variation, and it allows black to do multiple inaccuracies and make sure that white does not get his double pawns on c3. Most people here like to play d5, and d5 is an extremely good line. However, in my opinion, it's just best for black to play b6. And the main reason behind b6 is just to bring the bishop out to this diagonal. Here, white usually plays a3, and black here can take. And white here usually takes with the queen. This is the whole point. And black sacrifices his bishop pair for a quick development. And here, white can play bishop g5, black can castle, white can play e3, black can play d6, and this is extremely standard where black wants to place his pawn on c5 and bring knight to d7 or to c6 and play pawn to e5. So for example, if white plays knight f3, black never takes on f3. You should never ever take on f3 because then the g files open up and black will have his own problems. The whole point of the Nimzo-Indian is just to have a safe king. And here black can play knight bd7, and after bishop d3, black can play something like c5. And as you can notice here, white does not have much of an advantage. This is because knight c3 doesn't actually really offer white that much if black knows what he's doing. And after c5, white has many moves. b4 is one of the dubious ones. It looks strong, but black can just hang on to this pawn, and white will have an extremely bad c4 pawn. For example, black can play something like queen c7, and black is completely fine. And the reason why I don't recommend d5 is that now the whole point of the Nimzo-Indian is now broken. Your whole point is to place your pawns on dark squares and not light squares. This is why d5, in my opinion, is not that great of an idea. Another extremely common move for white is playing f3 here. And the whole point of f3 is that white wants to play e4 and does not care about anything that's happening to the queen side. And this is the exact position when you should just play d6. And d6 is always a good move, and especially in this case, it's a good move. Because now whenever white plays e4, you can just take knight immediately and play c5. And then you can get your traditional Nimzo-Indian flavor. And here, white almost always plays bishop e3. And here you can play something like b6. And after something like knight e2 or knight h3, which are both equally okay, you can just play knight c6. And your plan is the traditional Nimzo-Indian plan. Castles, knight a5, bishop a6, attack that pawn. The c4 pawn is white's main weakness here. So, however, here, white has many other moves. For example, white can play something like knight g3, which is extremely common. And here, black can castle. And then sooner or later, white's going to be threatening e5. For example, after white plays bishop d3, if you allow white playing e5, your king side is going to be able to be extremely weak. So sooner or later, for example, now black will play e5, and here white almost always plays d4 to save his pawn, and black gets this traditional Nimzo-Indian flavored position, while white doesn't really have much to do on the king side. And in my opinion, black is in a risk-free position. F3 is a quite popular line these days, but it isn't really that good. And likewise, the exact same thing for A3. You're just inviting black to do exactly what he wants. And although the Zamish is an extremely common line of the Nimzo-Indian, it just isn't really that good. Now black can just play c5. And basically, all of white's whole position is deteriorating. And now white can try something like e4, but then black can just castle, play e5 later. If white plays e5 here, then this position isn't even that good. Queen c7, e5 pawn's falling. And because of this, now a3 just isn't good. After you just take, play c5, and be able to castle, and your position will be completely fine. G3 is slightly more complicated because now black's favorite move, b6, and playing his bishop to this diagonal has been shut down, because after you play b6, bishop g2 just invites white into breaking up your position. So b6 won't work here. However, there is another development path, and that is because after white plays g3, white almost never ever plays e4. And this means that you can just calm down, just castle immediately. And here bishop g2 can be played, and here black has two roads to go. Either black can play something like c6 and d5, or in my opinion, just keep the traditional flavor and just play something like d6. And here white usually plays e3, but here you can just play c5. If white plays a3, you can just take. And now you get into this position where you can't play b6, but you still have all the other assets you have. And then after knight c6, something like knight e2, you can go e5. And this is forcing this position. And this position is just good for black, because with these double pawns, white has no kingside attack anymore. You don't have a kingside attack if you have this bishop on g2. So black is a lot better in this position. And we have knight f3, which is the last variation. And here, I think black can just play b6 and have a completely safe position. And here, white has many moves. g3 is usually played, but here black can just play bishop b7 and then castle. And this is basically a bishop g2 line that is just worse for white, because the knight shouldn't be on f3. So, and after knight f3, if white plays a traditional e3 line, this will transpose into the main line, which I will cover now. So the main line of the Nimzo-Indian is playing 4e3, and this line, although many people don't like it, in my opinion, is still the strongest line, and it's the main line for a reason. So firstly, what does this move do? It opens this bishop and prepares the move knight e2, which is extremely annoying for Nimzo-Indian players, but I think I've got that covered. So firstly, here black has a move, and this move is just to play b6. And just telling everyone, unless white doesn't force you, it's best for you guys to play b6 no matter in what position, unless you're playing against f3, which b6 doesn't make any sense, because you're biting into granite here. That's 3 pawns you're hitting. However, after in this position, e3, you can still play your same b6 line, but now white has 3 main options. White can play bishop d3 and knight e2. Now this line allows black to take on g2, but a lot of people say it's bad. But after I've experimented with bishop g2, I cannot see what is bad about this. Because sure, white does take on g7, but now this pin is so nasty. There's no way for white to break out of it unless he plays rook g3, and this is exactly why black should play knight h5 in this position, stopping rook g3, and now black has something like queen h4. This position is supposed to offer white the kingside attack, but if white just takes this pawn, this position is just a disaster now. And this is the reason why this sacrificial line, you can just take the pawn on g2, no problem. White cannot do anything about it. So bishop d3 After bishop b7, now most players just play knight f3 because they're aware. And this is when we enter the main line of the Nimzo-Indian. Here, black has a few options. Black can play castles, or black can play bishop c3, or black can play the dubious a5. And a5 is an extremely strange move because it means that after white has played e3, black is saying, okay, white's not getting the center. So after white plays e3, black can put his bishop back. And here, black wants to play a4, and then some way of getting their knight to b3. However, a5 is a dubious move, and I won't really recommend it. As you can see, the computer likes white now. And this is because that a5 is just wasting too much time, and black is not developing. And this is why here I would recommend castles. A lot of people don't like playing castles because now white is able to play queen c2, and then when black takes on c3, white can recapture with the queen. However, black has a lot more tempi now, and black can play something like c5. And whenever black castles, now black will take. And then after queen takes, black can play something like d6. He's guarded his c5 pawn. White's bishop, because of e3, is blocked in, so black is completely fine here. So I would recommend castles, but if you really want to play against the double pawns, then go ahead and play bishop c3. And then you can play c5. This is completely fine too, but I prefer castles, but if you guys prefer bishop takes c3, go ahead. So that is an extremely simplified Nimzo-Indian. However, white still has other moves to play. And for example, white can play knight f3. And here is a mistake that a lot of Nimzo-Indian players make. Most coaches, they recommend the Bogo-Indian. And the Bogo-Indian is something that is just not for the Nimzo flavor. Because here, white is able to get the same type of position, but now white doesn't have his bad dark squared bishop. So after white plays something like e3, castles, and bishop d3, you are in this type of Nimzo-Indian, but white does not have to play e4 to get his advantage because he doesn't have a dark squared bishop. And if black tries to go for the same setup, it's not going to offer black anything. White can just maintain this pawn chain, and then white will have a solid position with black having no prospects for a win. Because normally when the bishop is on c1 in this position, now the bishop is actually blocked in, and black can trade this bishop for something else, and this will make it better. This is why after knight f3, I would recommend the queen's Indian defense, b6. And this means that white has a few options here. If white plays knight c3, black just transitions back into Nimzo-Indian. This is not what white wants if he plays knight f3. Almost all of the time, you're going to play against a3. But if white is really doing this to avoid the Nimzo-Indian, then they're really afraid of playing against it, which is something that's a good sign because you're winning an extra tempo. And here, after knight c3, you have many moves that you can play. You can play the exact same d6, c5 structure, or you can just play d5 immediately. And this is the move that I would recommend because white has wasted a3 tempo for absolutely nothing. So you can just go back into the traditional queen-pawn position where the pawn in a3 just looks weird, and black can play a5, a4, and maybe even exploit b3. So if your opponent plays a3, you don't really have to worry, even if you still have your dark squared bishop. Your dark squared bishop can always just go to e7 and stand still there. Or if you're also really ambitious, you can go for the bishop's e7 line, and after white plays bishop f4, this is the whole point. After this, white will play e3. You can play something like knight e4, and the whole point of this is that after white kicks your bishop away and plays e3, you are going f5, and you get into this Dutch-like position, which is more dynamic but does offer risk. This is why I would personally just play d5, but if you're that risk taker, you can try playing f5. And this means that you will try to get the advantage that you want, but I guess it's still up to you to depend on what you're playing. The one thing that I would really stress out is don't play the Bogo-Indian. It doesn't offer black anything. You want to play Nimzo-Indian for a win, and Bogo-Indian just gives white the advantage for nothing. And finally, the last line that white can play here is playing g3. And against g3, you just have to play the Catalan. And here against the Catalan, there's nothing really that white can achieve if you just play this type of position. And here, a lot of players play knight f3, and then knight bd7, queen c4, and this is a mainline Catalan. And here black should play castles, but I like exploiting this tempo and playing knight e4. And after knight c3, black can play f5. And black can get into this type of stone wall position, which black can play solidly, and the Catalan bishop just isn't good against the pawn structure. And although the computer likes white here after bishop f4, this doesn't really offer white much if black just plays solid. Because as you can see now, white's advantage won't be increasing that much because it's just so much easier for black to play with all this extra space. And if you're an extremely solid player, you don't need to play knight e4. You can just play mainline castles, and you're just going to be playing a normal Catalan. And after this, for example, after knight c3, you can decide to take on c4. And after you take on c4, you're also going to be in a perfectly fine position. But it's still up to you if you want to play a dynamic stone wall or a calm Catalan. And those are all the lines. And if white doesn't play c4 here, and white just plays something like knight f3, then the Nimzo-Indian won't work, and you're going to need to look somewhere else. But I here prefer b6 because you want to keep that same Nimzo-Indian flavor. And after b6, white almost always plays c4, so you can actually transpose into a Queen's Indian. And other than that, white doesn't have many other moves. You don't really want to play bishop f4 before black has committed his d-pawn. And other than that, white doesn't have any other moves. So this Nimzo-Indian repertoire is an extremely good weapon against 1d4. And I hope that you have good success with it. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.